Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I want to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and I specifically want to talk about Felicia Day's Third Eye, which is a novel that she recently completed. And actually, I guess I should, you know what? I don't know if it's in print, but it absolutely is in audiobook. And actually, it's a high production audiobook with some major names in it. And so, spoilers for Felicia Day's Third Eye here. So, the reason why I want to talk about this is we're dungeon masters, right? So we're creating narratives. Okay. Now, Felicia Day has written a story, and you're like, wait a second, why didn't you just use the same word? I'm working on this. I'll give you a preview of it now. I think that Dungeons and Dragons is the only tool that actually creates narratives today, and everything else is stories. I think that's a good way of what Gary Gygax did on February 7th, 1974 was really transformational, like for society, right? It's these incredibly powerful stories that are created with a dungeon master, 5 dragon masters, and six math rocks, right? 6 fate rocks, the dice, right? And so these stories are really very different. They're very different than stories that are written. They're fundamentally different. And I actually think they're the future of human narrative, right? And actually, they're the present of human narrative, and there are no other human narratives. Everything else is a story, right? Now, of course, you do have sacred texts. Those are, well, actually, the Holy Bible is not really a story. It's a historical record with a spiritual component, right? So, narratives, historical record with spiritual component, stories, right? So Felicia Day's book is a story, right? So I recently got it, and there's a little bit of I'll tell you my purchase journey. So we have an Audible account. We get 1 credit every 2 months, and for my family, we share it, and it's good. I really enjoy it, being able to get audiobooks that we like every now and then. So we didn't have a credit, and then they served this up to me, and I was like, awesome. Sometimes there's some really good stuff on Audible for free. This was not free. They're like $20, and I was like, nah, I ain't paying $20 for that. But then they came back and they're like 85% off, $4, and I was like, $4, yeah, that's like I spent more on a coffee today than that. Yeah, I'll take it, right? So I picked this up, and I highly recommend it for any dungeon master because I think there's a lot to learn here. So one, it's pretty incredible. It's got Felicia Day. She plays the main character in it. And then it has Neil Gaiman, right, as the narrator. And it has Sean Astin. Now, Sean Astin, he played Samwise Gamgee in Lord of the Rings many years ago. And he also played Winona Ryder's boyfriend in Stranger Things. Pretty sure it was season 2. And he dies. He literally gets killed. And he was excellent in that. He was really, he was a red shirt in that, but he was still excellent in that role. And I really like Sean Astin. I think he's really talented, and he's excellent, right? So one, I paid $4 for it. It's definitely worth $4. I'm really enjoying it. But because I know Felicia Day's life, well, hey, Scott, how do you know Felicia Day's life? Because it's extremely public, right? Like, first of all, Felicia Day, is highly responsible for literally millions of Dungeons & Dragons views. So I was paying attention to her even before that because I discovered her on the Guild. I also read her autobiography, and I'm just a big fan. I also really liked her on Supernatural. She's been excellent in a lot of things, right? But when I started listening to this book, you're like me. You're a dungeon master, right? So you know how narratives are written, right? And when I looked at this thing, I was like, wait a second, there's something going on here. And there is. So I wanted to talk about how Felicia Day is using this story and how it portrays the future of Dungeons & Dragons use. Okay, so here's the thing. Felicia Day writes a book, right? That's simple. Felicia Day is author. But that's actually not true in my humble opinion. I don't think Felicia Day... Well, and she was on a podcast, and she kind of she gave some clues that this was the case, right? So basically, she wrote this, and the reason why, and this is brilliant, right? A lot of times you go into a meeting and you pitch, in Hollywood, you go in and you pitch people, right? Well, a lot of people are figuring out pitch meetings are very hard to get, right? You're much better off writing a comic book, writing a novel, making a podcast, completing a story there, and then allowing executives, PAs to listen to that as a podcast. That they don't have to read, right? Like it's really smart. In with comic books, you have to read less, right? So like just you could make a podcast that's fully listenable and go, that's the pitch, right? Like it's super smart, right? And I think that's exactly what Felecia Day did with Third Eye. And actually, sorry, I guess there's really no spoilers for Third Eye in this. So basic, but here's the kicker. What's really interesting is you read this book, right? And you're like, I know what this is, right? It's literally Felecia Day saying, like, I was like, why did she write this, right? And the thing is, it's not because she wanted to create a good story. What it is she wanted to create a good life. And this is pretty powerful. Now, I get the idea from listening to this, Felecia Day does not need money at this point, which kind of makes sense because she made quite a bit of money on the Guild. She sold Geek and Sundry. She was on Supernatural. That thing plays in a million places. And she was on these commercials. So the point is, she's had a lot of areas where money can come to her. And when you look at this, you're like, why did she write this the way that she did? And I think what you find when you look at how she wrote this thing, what you really find is that I'm pretty sure that what she did is she wants to do a show with Sean Astin, and she wants to do a show with herself, and I think she wants Neil Gaiman to come in and do punch-ups on the writing. This is her crafting a job. That's what this is, right? And it kind of feels it. Like I paid $4. I'm not dissatisfied, but I'm like, there's a lot of, like, you could have just wrote a compelling story, but you could tell she's not writing a story. She's writing like, oh, I want to work with Sean Astin. Oh, I would like to. Here's a role that I know one person I that's connected to me is going to fit really well in this role. Oh, and I get to work with this is her crafting a situation, not where she's getting the best people, but where she's getting people she's comfortable with. And I think she's also not leaving room for a lot of Hollywood input here. She's like, I want to do this my way, right? And I think the reason she's able to do this is she can write this and wait. Because if this doesn't work, she's still got money, right? And so now what's really interesting to me is just like, why would you write a book? And that answer is changing. Right? Third Eye was not written for me to enjoy a good supernatural story. It was written literally to craft the perfect studio space where Felecia Day can go and spend time with her friends, exactly the way Adam Sandler makes a movie and is really getting a vacation, right? Now, what's interesting is, what does this mean for us? What does this mean for Dungeons & Dragons? And for Dungeon Masters and for Dragon Masters? Well, what I'm saying here is, what I want you to pay attention to is, we use narrative for the purposes we choose. That's the point, right? We are no longer going to be under the tyranny of fun, right? People are like, oh, this is just a Goblin Job game. Nothing here matters. Nobody's going to learn anything. It's not possible for anybody to grow. No one's going to improve, and certainly no one's going to transform. I assure you, Scott, that my game sucks and has never had any value and is good for nothing but fun. And frankly, probably I'm the only person having fun at the table. Really, and this is what I'm saying, right? We get to choose, right? Gary gave this to us, right? And we get to choose its purpose. And I say it should be to learn, grow, improve, and transform. And what I'm also saying is, don't be a schmuck. Look around. Everybody is using stories to get what they want. Why can't we do that with Dungeons & Dragons? and abandon the anchor of fun. I am encouraging you, stop seeking fun in Dungeons and Dragons. Use it to purpose, use it to learn, use it to grow, use it to improve, use it to transform, and shuck off like an ear from a corn cob anybody who's not ready to do that with you. Take them off the table, right? It's not useful to have them there. Fun is an anchor. It's been an anchor for 50 years. We can do more with Dungeons and Dragons. We can literally craft the IRL world we want with it. Exactly like Felecia Day wrote Third Eye, a supernatural story that has nothing to do with entertainment. It has to do with her crafting a space she intends to be in for 1 year to 7 years. I very strongly believe that, in my humble opinion. Every single word you just heard is my humble opinion. What's important is when I get to hear your humble opinion when you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a fetch millennium.